Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the September 12th, 2018 combined meeting for the Vineland Board of Education. Mrs. Haley, roll call.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Here.
Mr. Holmes?
Present.
Mr. Jennings?
Present.
Mr. Medio?
Here.
Mr. Sobrana?
Present.
Ms. Spinelli?
Here.
Mr. Ulrich?
Present.
Ms. Acosta?
Here.
Mr. Boardley?
Present. In compliance with the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law, commonly referred to as the Sunshine Law, the Vineland Board of Education has caused notice and posting of this meeting to be sent to the following, announcing time, place thereof, agenda, etc. The Daily Journal, SNJ Today, the Press of Atlantic City, Nuestra Comunidad, Visto Bueno, the Clerk for the City of Vineland, and the Administration Office Public Bulletin Board. Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Haley, do we have a resolution for executive session?
We do not.
Thank you. Dr. Gruccio, do we have any special presentations this evening?
No, we do not.
Do I have a motion for the approval of minutes for the August 8th, 2018 combined meeting minutes and the August 8th, 2018 executive session minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Mrs. Haley.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes? Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Boardley?
Yes. Mr. DeSanto, do we have a report?
No, we do not.
At this time, we'll open the floor to public comment on agenda items. Please be reminded you are limited to 5 minutes per person. Ms. Haley, do we have any sheets?
I do not have any yellow sheets at this time. I don't know if anybody has any agenda items.
Anyone have any comments on agenda items this evening? Seeing none. Dr. Gruccio, motions and resolutions.
Okay. I would like to recommend discussion of 1.1, retirements, resignations, terminations, leaves of absence, employment, transfers, student substitutes, extracurricular activities, and extracurricular summer work.
Questions or comments? Seeing none.
Okay, I'd like to recommend approval of personnel 1.1.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, Mrs. Haley.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes? Yes. Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Boardley?
Yes.
I'd like to recommend discussion of district travel and field trips.
Questions, comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the first reading of the following bylaws, policies, and regulations for adoption. They are all mandated changes and are listed beneath.
Questions? Mr. Medio.
There's policy here and there's regulation. The policy comes from the state. Does the regulation come from the state also?
Question is, the policy comes from the state, does the regulation come from the state?
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none?
Okay, I'd like to recommend discussion regarding proposal for behavioral education consultants with Brett DeNovi and Associates LLC.
Sorry.
I missed one.
We have to go to the approval.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the approval. I apologize. I'd like to recommend approval of 2.1 through 2.2.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, Mrs. Haley.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes? Yes. Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Boardley?
Yes.
Now I would like to recommend discussion regarding the proposal for behavioral educational consultants with Brett DeNovi and Associates LLC not to exceed the amount of $127,440 for the 2018-19 school year in a form acceptable by the superintendent and board solicitor.
Questions or comments? Mr. Sobrano?
Yeah, I spoke to Ms. Godlewski about this, and I'd like her to repeat some of the explanation that she gave to me about this program, because at first glance, it seemed to me that we have a great number of very skilled and well-trained professionals, and I wanted to know why we would need this much extra in consulting work to handle specific student problems.
Good evening. Brett DeNovi and Associates is an approved provider for behavioral therapy on the State of New Jersey Department of Education approved clinic and agency website. The purpose of this proposal is for clinicians to come in and work directly with our autistic population, working with collaboratively with teachers, specifically on addressing students' behavior, utilizing applied behavioral analysis methods. Really what they are doing is they're coming in, and behavior in this case does not mean, it may not mean behavior as we think of behavior. It could mean temper tantrums, but it could also mean something very specific that's not socially acceptable, that's part of what an autistic profile looks like. For example, stimming, could be hand flapping, things that are just not acceptable. So what they would do is come in and work very closely with the teachers to develop a applied behavioral analysis protocol for the teachers then to implement within their classrooms, trying to extinguish or curb or diminish the behavior. Part of what, this is IDA funded, and part of what IDA is supposed to do, as well as what we are supposed to do as a district, is look for ways to utilize the IDA grant to keep students in district, in their LRE. And part of the IEP process is addressing when we have to put students into an approved out-of-district placement. Part of what we need to do as a district is to address why the student is going out and what can we do in district here to keep students in. And part of that is the utilization of BCBAs or board certified behaviorist. That's what this program is about. We did have a staff member in the past on staff for as a behaviorist, but with redistricting, we had to split our program because we have a very large autistic program. And what we're able to get with this contract and this proposal are 2 full-time staff members to be located in the beginning at our elementary self-contained program locations. We are also able to get a behavioral consultant, so 3 staff members would be part of this proposal to assist those students who are experiencing escalated behaviors that are not within the scope of what our expectations are in the classroom.
How does this differ from the training that we had staff members do with Dr. Buzz a few years ago? And is that
Dr. Buzz also utilizes applied behavioral analysis, but the population that he's working with are basically our emotionally disturbed, our mental health, our disaffected students. Still some of the same kind of strategies. The autistic population, though, is the behavior protocol that they use is typically a very intensive protocol. For example, if you want a student to stay on task, sometimes it might be down to the 10-minute mark. So part of it, if they do this task for 10 minutes, applied behavioral analysis states a reward would come. So they might get a reward. A reward might be a Skittle, whatever the child is going to work for. And then the plan of it is that you elongate that time on task to where it it reflects what the expectation is. So this program is, our autistic ABA program is much, much more intensive in nature.
Terry, doesn't there
Yes.
also need to be a specific certification that these people hold?
Yes, the technicians that are coming in to work within the classrooms as our full-time technicians are registered behavior technicians. They would work under a behavioral consultant that has either a BCBA or which is a board-certified behavioral analyst, or an associate behavior analysis. So there is a certificate. All of them have very specific training and very specific certificates to do what they're doing.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Terry?
Yes.
I know we talked about this earlier today, and you pointed out that it's funded by the IDEA grant.
It is, yes. And as I said before, part of what IDEA wants us to do is utilize those federal funds to support very specific programs, materials, equipment for our students with disabilities, so it does not create a district financial hardship.
Mr. Medio, you have a question?
Now, one follow-up. You told me a little earlier that the idea, no pun intended, was to keep these students in district as opposed to having to send them out. So could I draw any conclusions about this being an investment in forestalling something like that?
Our hope is always the more supports and services and interventions that we give students within district, we'll keep them in district. And I think, I don't know, Ms. Haley was, there was some information that was presented to you concerning special education, and it's something that I can re-give to Ms. Haley, but it shows the more interventions over the past few years, the more supports and services that we have given to our teachers and our staff members in district, our out-of-district tuition has dropped dramatically over the last 5 years.
Mr. Medio?
How long does it take for the behavior to be changed?
It could take weeks. We had issues where we had situations where we were extinguishing behavior for months. So it depends on the student. It depends on their cognitive ability. There's lots of different variables, especially working with students that are on the autistic spectrum. Many of them are nonverbal. So in some cases, it can be something as simple as changing the student's environment, moving their desk away from the window to the side near the chalkboard, and the behavior extinguishes, and some might take.
How many students are affected by this?
Right now, we are almost at capacity in our self-contained autistic program. We have 4 classes at Winslow School. We have 6 classes of self-contained, a self-contained program at Barcy School. So there are 10 classes. Maximum number in each of those classes is 6. I think one classroom has 5 in it. The rest are at max. We also have in-class support at Rossi School that focuses on our students with autism. We have a middle school program and a high school program. The premise is by addressing the behaviors early on and putting these staff members full-time in the elementary school, our hope is that once they get to middle school, their behaviors will be, in line and check.
Who was doing this last year?
We did have a staff member that we had one person that was on staff for the entire autistic program. And as I stated, with the redistricting, at one time our elementary program was all in Winslow School with a few classes over at Leuchter. It was a task for one person, so for comparatively the same amount of money, we are able to have 3 people giving services of sorts.
Well, it's an extra $50,000.
Her salary and benefits?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I didn't-
I would think so. That's the way you usually
Okay.
figure it.
She was not,
Would the
just
person
so
be
you
at a
know,
te-
she was not paid on, she was paid as, she was on the psychologist guide. So it wasn't on the teacher's guide, so I don't know if there's a difference in salary on that end.
Yeah, psychologist is a higher
Yeah.
salary.
Mrs.
And our
Godlewski.
child study team psychologists can't do the same job in-house?
They do not have the specialized training that a behavioral analysis, somebody who has been given specialized training on behaviors. In some cases, for a BCBA, it is a master's degree. In some cases, a doctorate degree. They also, the amount of time that's spent, part of what they may do is sit with a student for 2 weeks, charting behavior, and trying to put interventions into place. It just is very difficult with them having the caseloads that they do, the child study teams having the caseloads that they do, and going between the multiple schools.
Mrs. Godlewski, the quote that was given for $127,000, that's directed by the needs of the district, so in other words, it's not to exceed that amount, but it could be less than that amount at the end of the school year,
Correct.
depending on what the needs are, correct?
Correct. I met with Denovi and asked them to come up. This is what I felt that our needs were right now. And again, it can always be, if we don't think that we need 5 days a week, it may be that we need 3 days a week. It may not be in the elementary school. We may be able to switch between elementary and middle. So there is flexibility, but it was not a proposal that they dictated to me. It was what I felt we needed to address the needs of our students.
Thank you.
If I could just add, on the contract, it says, level staff support can be provided at $45 per hour. The majority of consultation hours can be provided at this lower rate. The role of the clinical associate is to assist in the implementation of the interventions developed by the behavioral consultant. So it's really not to exceed that total amount, and in the contract, they have estimates of how much they're estimating for the 2 clinical associates and how much for the behavior consultant at a not to exceed number of 127.
Any follow-up questions or comments? Seeing none? Thank you,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Godlewski.
Thank you.
I'd like to recommend discussion of the following name changes to the authorized signers on the Winslow Elementary School activity account, which is at BB&T Bank. We would remove Deborah Quinn and Christina Craig and add Renee Braxton, Deborah Flumenbaum, Lauren Delago, and Helen Haley.
Questions or comments? Seeing none?
We'd like to recommend discussion regarding the tuition contract with Salem County Vocational for the Career Technical and Academy programs for the 18-19 school year with a tentative tuition charge per student of $5,527 full-time.
Questions or comments? Mr. Ulrich?
Salem County VOTEC is charging us $55.27 for VOTEC students. We pay $7,400. How can they do it cheaper?
Theirs is based, again, every year around January, February, the certified tuition rates come out for that school, and they are required to adjust the tuition down for that. And the very first year that it even came out for CC Tech was this year, for 2 years ago. So, but they don't have an adjusted rate yet. So if the 74 is too high and they get a certified rate that's less, then the contract reads that we share in the difference. We just don't have that number yet for them. Salem County has been doing it longer in a full-time status, and they have a more accurate rate.
I know it's like beating a dead horse, but I think we're getting overcharged for what we pay at the at our own VOTEC, when these other VOTECs are coming in at a much cheaper rate.
Well, all I can say is they're required to give it back once that certified rate comes out. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know that we can challenge the rate that they propose to us, but once they get the certified rate, then they're supposed to give it back.
All right.
And so far in the first year, like we had pointed out, we would owe them money in the first year. It's true, because in the first year, we have a lot of shared time students, so their certified rate divided by 2 is higher than the $1,000 that we were paying them, but it will turn. It will turn in the other direction. As we get more full-time students and less shared time, it will turn.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to recommend discussion regarding the professional services agreement with EBS for state certified speech therapist in the amount of $75 to $85 per hour from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019.
Questions or comments? Mr. Sobrano?
Helen, did I miss a total number of dollars associated with this contract?
Okay, let me just turn to the contract. There's 32 students, so 32 times 5527, but I know it's on the contract itself. $176,864. There's 32 full-time students that go there.
I have a question. I'm sorry, Eugene. Are these the kids that lisp and, can't?
I think we're talking about two different things. Mr. Sobrano, you were talking about CT Tech or the speech therapy? Mr. Sobrano, was your question about CT Tech or the speech therapist?
Was your question about Salem County?
I'm talking about EBS.
Oh, I don't know that one. I mean, I know that it's $75 to $85 per hour. I would need Mrs. Godlewski to address that one. I'm sorry, I was answering the wrong question.
This contract is just a preventive, really being proactive in case we do not have a speech therapist available due to illness, maternity. So this is just really being proactive to have somebody in line that could provide the services, since that is an area where we don't have a pool of substitutes. So there's no students at this point because we are fully staffed.
Mr. Medio?
I guess my question remains, I'm looking for a number here. Total.
It means a total number.
There is no number.
There is no.
There is no number because we don't have any students, we don't have any need for this person right at this particular moment.
This is basically a substitute when needed.
This is like a substitute rate for each of the categories on the contract.
And we only call in an agency is if the therapist is going to be out for an extended period of time. It's not a day-to-day call-in, it's when somebody is out for a length of time.
Any other questions?
Okay, now my question, is this for kids that have like a lisp or?
It's for students who have speech therapy for whatever reason. It could be for articulation, for language disorders within their IEPs. So they, because of their IEPs, are able to receive
we're still
those
in
services.
special
Yeah,
ed.
correct.
Okay. What about our regular GP kids that have speech impediments and?
They would be referred to the child study team and to the speech therapist, and if it's deemed that they do have a disability in the area of speech, they would receive an IEP and receive services.
Okay, so this will help all of our students? All of them?
Only
No.
students with IEPs.
Oh, okay. So what about our students who don't have IEPs and have a
Well, then
speech
they don't have a need in the educational setting, so they would not receive speech in school.
Wow. Okay.
It has to be an educational impact for them to receive therapy within the school.
Ultimately, if they have something that bad, they're going to get an
They're
IEP.
going to get an
and then they'll get the
IEP,
therapy.
correct.
No, I was just going to say that most of these disabilities manifest themselves pretty early on in, so a lot of times these children begin receiving services in preschool, and depending on how far along they get, they may either continue as they enter into the regular grades, and, you know, at some point in time, if are deemed no longer in need of those services, then the services end. But any child in the Vineland Public School District, if at some point in time they are deemed in need of speech pathology services, will receive speech therapy.
Via an IEP.
Right, via an
Correct.
IEP. Right,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any follow-up questions?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding a resolution to authorize the business administrator to purchase in excess of the bid threshold of $40,000 office supplies, school supplies, janitorial supplies, vehicles and buses, technology infrastructure, playground equipment, repair work, and computers, accessories on state contract and/or from Cumberland County and/or Educational Services Commission of Morris and/or Educational Service Commission of New Jersey and/or Hunterdon County Educational Services Commission and/or Camden County Educational Services Commission and/or Western States Contracting Alliance and/or U.S. Communities and Sourcewell, formerly NJPA, during the fiscal year 2018-2019.
Questions or comments? Mr. Media?
Approximately how often will we use this?
We use it for the items that are listed on here, but whenever we can go out to bid, we go out to bid to get a better number. But the items listed on here, like office supplies, school supplies, janitorial supplies, many times these other organizations have already gone out to bid, so we compare prices, and if theirs are good, we just use their bid. A lot of the Ed Service Commissions do that for us. We also buy buses, often from one of these Ed Service Commissions, rather than putting them out to bid, because the price is comparable, and they've already gone through the process.
So you're just going out to bid through somebody else?
Yes. And we still have to have all the backup bid documents in our files, but we're just kind of piggybacking on their bid process.
Okay. So you're not going to Mr. Ulrich's company and buying $190,000 worth of widgets? You're not doing that?
If we had,
Unless it's already been bid out by one of
Right.
these groups?
Right, if something is over the bid threshold of $40,000, we would have to go out to bid for it unless it's on state contract or one of these Ed Service Commissions or the Sourcewell.
Mr. Sabrina?
Now, in any case, whatever this purchase was, it would still be on the agenda for a vote for approval.
Actually, no, it wouldn't, because that's what this is saying. It's giving me authorization to buy off of these entities if it's over $40,000, because it's already been bid out. Like, we listed the items that we would be buying from them. So like we have office supplies, school supplies, janitorial supplies. We listed the items on here that we would be going to these entities to buy from them rather than putting out our own bid.
So essentially, we have no oversight over any of these purchases.
Well, we can choose not to buy from them. I mean, we will look at their prices. If their prices are comparable to...
No, I meant the board, I didn't mean...
Oh, that's what this vote is. It's really just a vote saying, yes, we authorize you to buy from these other entities that have already gone out to bid. And we have to have all the bid documents in our files because the auditors will still ask to look for the political contribution sheet, all the backup that we always have on a bid.
Ultimately, you're
And how
bound by the
would- how
budget
would we-
line item anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be something that we've already budgeted for. It's just that we're not going to go through the whole bidding process because somebody else has already done that, and they have economies of scale because they're buying from many school districts at one time, and we just buy through them.
Mr. Ulrich?
I just want to clarify that my company doesn't sell widgets, and, no, actually, Helen, that doesn't prevent us from having our purchasing agent go out and do a separate bid on those products that are in there, because maybe we don't like the price that they bid at, so maybe there's a cheaper price that we can bid at, or co-op a shared service agreement with the city, for instance, or the county, or whatever.
That's correct, yeah. Mr. Salerno will compare all those prices, and he has been looking into many shared service agreements. And just recently, we had a situation with some buses. I know Mr. Calavini wanted a certain number of seats on a certain bus, like say a 31-passenger bus, and they weren't available on any of these that we usually buy from. So they can either change what they're going to buy or go out to bid ourselves if we want to look for something like that. So we don't just rubber stamp anything. We always compare the prices. And sometimes it's more economical for us just to buy from one of these ed service commissions because they've already gone through all the mechanics of going out to bid. Because it's costly to do that too, you know, to advertise and just go through the whole process.
Okay, thank you. I guess my bid's done then?
What's that?
My bid on the widgets is no
Oh,
longer?
yeah, we're going to just reject that bid.
All right,
Yes.
thank you.
you.
Helen, one more question. How does this differ from the way we operate now?
It doesn't differ at all. Every year we have, this is a standard item that we put on our agenda once a year, and it authorizes me to sign a purchase order buying these items from these ed service commissions or co-ops.
It's only the amount that's changed.
There is no amount on here. It's just the
No,
names.
The bid threshold, 40,000.
Oh, no, 40,000, I'm sorry. 40,000 is a state threshold. So the purchasing law says anything over $6,000, we need to get 2 quotes. Anything over $40,000, you either have to go out to bid or buy from a state contract or buy from, you know, some other consortium. And these ed service commissions are really other school districts, and their sole purpose is to provide shared services to school districts. They don't receive tax dollars. They have to run a profit on their own, but they do provide just services that other districts would need at a cheaper cost because they're supplying, whether it's buses or transportation or special ed people. They have a lot of services that they provide. Each one has different specialties.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd like to recommend I'd like to recommend discussion regarding the submission of the fiscal year 2019 ESSA application to the State of New Jersey Department of Ed. Listed below, you will see each of the title amounts. Title I money, $3,375,705. Then Title I SIA, Title II, Title III, Title III immigrant, and Title IV Part A.
Questions or comments? Seeing none.
I'd like to recommend discussion regarding the change order number 1 from Asphalt Paving Corporation for the Vineland High School parking lot restoration, Phase 2. There's a credit of unused contingency allowance in the amount of $10,000.
Questions or comments? None?
Would like to recommend discussion regarding the change order from Asphalt Paving Corporation for the John H. Winslow School parking lot for a credit of unused contingency allowance in the amount of $10,000.
Questions or comments? Seeing none?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the program agreement between the Community Food Bank of New Jersey Incorporated and the Vineland Public Schools for New Jersey SNAP-Ed Nutrition and Fitness Education Program from September 4th, 2018 through September 31st, 2020.
Questions or comments? None?
I would like to recommend discussion of final financial reports for June 2018. Board Secretary reports and Treasurer reports.
Questions or comments? Seeing none?
I would like to recommend discussion of the 2018-19 Joint Transportation Agreement between Cape May County Special Services and the Vineland Board of Education in the amount $45,131.40.
Questions or comments? None?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the following contract renewals with Shepherd Bus Service from September 2018 through June 2019. These are for charter school, private school, preschool, St. Mary's School in East Vineland, Wallace Duran and Vineland High School PM, and multi-site Vineland Public Charter.
Questions or comments? None?
Just
Mr. Aldridge?
one question on St. Mary's.
Yes.
Why do we bus there?
We've always bused to the private schools. Joe, do you want to add anything to that? I know, but we've always done it.
We have to by law?
I believe
Yes.
so, but Joe
Okay,
can answer.
good enough. I don't need you, Joe. Thanks. Question answered.
I'd like to recommend discussion regarding the Cumberland County Regional Cooperative Transportation Initiatives, 2018-19 jointure, 2018-19 transportation quoted contracts, and 2018-19 transportation addendum.
Questions or comments? Seeing none?
I would like to recommend approval of items 4.1 through 4.13.
Motion?
Second.
Roll call, Mrs. Saley?
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes, abstain on 4.7 and 4.8.
Mr. Holmes? Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Boardley?
Yes. Now we have items proposed for review or discussion or adoption by board members. Board member Ms. Megan Spinelli wants to discuss and possibly vote on a pilot program for landscaping a school. Ms. Spinelli?
So I got to go to one of the facilities meetings a couple months back, and I understand, Mr. Weaver, they're doing a great job maintaining the schools, but it's just not enough. So I wanted to propose that we do a pilot program at one of the schools where we would hire a local landscaper to come in and to maintain that school. Trim the bushes, just kind of get rid of some of the dead trees that are around. I feel like the schools are the flagship of our community and that they should be kept up. You know, look at Cape May Tech. They have sod. It looks like a golf course when you pull up there. And I would like to see some of our schools look the same.
Mr. Weaver, would you like to speak about what's going on with Lincoln Avenue School and the program going on there?
One of the problems we have this year, it's an unbudgeted service. So if we were going to take a look at doing some type of outsourcing for landscaping, we would have to cut something out of the facility budget to fund this. Just to give you an idea, we wrote into the contract a maintenance bond with Bach. That requires 2 years of full maintenance on the grounds at Lincoln Avenue Middle School. That's grounds, cutting, plant preservation, mulch. The contract is $149,000 for 2 years. We're not paying it. It's part of the project. But it gives you an idea of the magnitude and the cost. And we haven't even talked about the scope of work. Could we come up with a small scope of work and do minimal amount of work? We could. We could talk about that. But we have 250 acres. Middle School 2 is, Lincoln Avenue Middle School 2 is 40 acres. So it gives you an idea of the magnitude of the cost to try to add that additional service to the grounds. And I agree, it would be, certainly it's a service, it would look nice. We have one full-time guy doing 250 acres of grounds.
Right, and he's
We're barely getting to the minimum of keeping the grass down to a minimum height.
Right, and I feel like with landscaping, it comes into a little more than just cutting the grass. I mean,
Absolutely.
I understand that you guys went out and trimmed some of the bushes, but driving around town, I see some overgrown stuff, a lot of weeds, dead trees, and I kind of want to get all that taken care of and get the schools really looking as they should. So even if we couldn't do a pilot program, I think, you know, quarterly, 4 times a year, to have somebody come in that is a professional to kind of take care of those needs. I think we should try to find some money, move some money around to, the schools are the flagship of your community. We drive by them every day, and I feel like they should look superior.
Oh, I agree. There's no question about it. It is an additional cost. It's service. It comes down to adding service to that component. And if Dr. Gruccio would like to take a look at the budget with me, and if there's something we could cut, it's a very tight budget. I'm concerned about building envelopes and things like that. We did not budget for that type of service, but we could certainly take a look at it.
I also think that to some extent the school principals can add into that out of their budgets. You know, it is kind of their home away from home. You know, we like our homes to look presentable, and, you know, I'm no doubt in my mind they do too, but giving them the leeway to go ahead and, you know, do some of these things, plant flowers, or, you know, maybe whatever they can come up with, you know, maybe we can work on something like that as well.
I did suggest to the principals that they consider either a club or something with the parents, a beautification project for the schools beyond what we're able to do. And some of them are already doing that, so hopefully more will get on board, but I did suggest that they look into that.
Mr. Ulrich?
The only thing that I would have a problem with the school-based budget is that that's not an educational item, and we've already, well, we haven't, Dr. Gucci has already asked the principals to trim their budgets every time we go. So when you look at operating funds at the school level, I think that's something that if we're going to do it, it should be absorbed into the general budget, not the school-based budgets, because they're already thinned. And a beautification project where you have volunteers is great. That might be another avenue regarding bushes that are overgrown. You know, some of that is a law enforcement concern. You know, if you have high bushes that are blocking ingress, egress, access, view, sight lines, all that stuff has to go down. You know, and because that turns into a safety issue. So I think quarterly, maybe dealing with land, not maybe cutting grass, but dealing with some of that overgrown stuff coming in might be a, you know, a viable option if you look at it just from the safety perspective. Mm-hmm. And I'll take beautification out of it. Look at it from the safety perspective.
And the other option, what we can do is even give our people additional hours. We could work additional overtime to try to make up some of the areas that need to be addressed. That's something we could take a look at also. But that's always a tight budget on the overtime side. So we're constantly trimming the overtime and trying to keep that number as low as possible. But you know, we certainly could take a look at it.
I would prefer to go with the professional side, not anything against any district employees, but, you know, a lot of times they trim the bushes, they just kind of like trim them and it's all left all over the grass, and, you know, that looks just as bad.
The other thing, just so it is prevailing wage, just to understand the cost of landscaping.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not like you're doing it at your home. We're talking $70 an hour for a professional landscaper under prevailing wage. That's going to be the number. That's why this cost on this contract with Alliance is $149,000 for 2 years. If you were doing that non-prevailing wage, that number would be reduced probably at least by 40%, if not more. So that's another consideration.
But we could put proposals out and see, you know, what our options are. So I wanted to, you know, obviously pilot a program, pick a school, kind of see how it goes, have somebody take care of the property for a couple months, or do the quarterly thing where somebody comes in and takes care of, you know, the overgrown stuff, trims down stuff. Those are my ideas.
Mr. Jennings, you had a comment?
Yeah, I have to agree with Ms. Spinelli. I've always been an advocate of keeping our schools clean and looking nice. Our children pull up in a bus or in their parents' vehicle or walk, and I think it reflects on them internally, whether they know it or not, subconsciously, that, you know, the school looks good, everything's clean. You know, when you bring your car to a mechanic and it's dirty, they're going to treat your car like crap. You know what I mean? If it's clean, they're going to treat your car pristine and take care of it. So, same thing applies there with the schools, I feel. If we're taking care of our schools, our students will be more apt to take care of the school as well. I mean, 99%. There's always those few, you know.
Right. And I just want to, you know, I give credit to the person that is taking care of everything, and they're doing a great job, but, you know, we're constantly growing, and I just feel like we have to look at other avenues and ways, you know, to stay competitive. You have the charter school, you have VOTEC, and I want our schools to look just as nice as everybody else's.
Dr. Gruccio, is this something that the administration can look at and possibly speak with the facilities and the finance committee and
We'd
then
be happy to.
kind of report back to the board, see what we can do.
Yep, we will look into it. I also want you to know that we have parents sometimes through the PTO, so that it's not impacting the budget. I would not want it to impact our educational budget, but a lot of times our PTOs and parents will come out, they'll have a certain Saturday or whatever where they plant flowers and do things for the school. So that's kind of what we were encouraging the principals to do.
Any other comments or questions? We'll move on now to the opportunity for the public to address the board. Reminder, you are limited to 5 minutes. Mr. Burke?
No, that's not Mr. That's the guy who wrote that letter.
My name is Carl Belletta. I'm a citizen of Vineland for umpteen years. And my purpose of being before you is regarding the naming of the school on Lincoln Avenue. I don't know the procedures that you've used in the past, and I've read in the newspaper about what's happened in previous meetings, and it came to my attention that someone was being honored already and was pushing to have another accolade by having the school named after them. So I thought I would write a letter to the editors of the Press and the Atlantic City, the Press and the Daily Journal. And the Press did enter the letter to the editor that I wrote, but for whatever reason, the Daily Journal so far has not. So I thought I would come before you to read my comments, which I understand, which you have a copy, I believe, in your desk or in front of you. And I would like to read this letter and for you to put it in your folder so at the next meeting you read it again. And now I'll go forward with the letter. The subject being Sergeant Pilla already is being honored. When the school at Chestnut Avenue and Main Road was built, the Vineland Board of Education gave the school their approval to the name it the Memorial School. Later in 1990s, several local veterans organizations, Marine Detachment, American Legion, VFW, Korean War Veterans, Jewish War Veterans, and others, convinced the Vineland Board of Education to change the name to the Veterans Memorial School. The city of Vineland, probably the borough of Vineland, saw fit to honor the veterans by establishing the circle at Landis Park many decades ago. At Landis Park, several monuments have been added over the years honoring veterans. There is one and only one honoring a single veteran. His name is Sergeant Dominic Pilla. As a Korean War veteran, I don't see it necessary or fair to name a school facility for Sergeant Pilla when he is singularly already being honored at Landis Park. I suggest that current members of the Vineland Board of Education take a casual ride and visit both the Landis Park Circle and the front and inside entrance hallway of the Veterans Memorial School before you vote on naming the new school. I believe the City of Vineland, the Vineland Board of Education, many veterans organizations, civil organizations, and individuals have contributed their voice, time, and effort to honor all veterans over the many decades. In closing, I pose the following question. Why should a service person who has died in the service of his country to be bestowed a second honor when many service personnel who died in the service of our nation and the city of Vineland do not have a Christian cross, a Star of David, or a large monument dedicated to them at Landis Park? That's my conclusion of my letter. I would like for you to give your total consideration as to the attributes of what your policy has been in the past and the fact that the gentleman who is being pushed to be have their name on the school is already being honored. Thank you. Any comments?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to address the board?
Hello, my name is Ron Walker. Y'all know me. Actually, I'm just here to address Mr. Borley, the president, to the vice president, to Mr. Fiacchi, Mr. Sobrana, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Ulrich, Mr. Medio, and to Mr. Jennings, and to all central administrations, to our superintendent, Dr. Gruccio, Mr. Frangipani, Mr. Fry, to our transportation director, Mr. Joe Calavini, personnel director, Dr. Rossi. I'm just here to say thank you. And I said when all three of my kids graduated, I would come just to say thank you to the administration, to every teacher, to every bus driver, to everyone that had a part of all three of my children's education, because all three of them have turned out to be successful. My oldest son is pursuing his model music career. My middle son is in his third year of Stockton University for physician assistant. And my daughter, who just graduated in top honors, is now at Rutgers University studying political science with a dual degree pursuing criminal justice. And it could not have been done with all the boards. I've been coming to the board meeting for over 20-something years. I know I have not been the best parent. You know, when it comes to certain things, I just always had the children's education. But I said when my last child graduated with success, I come to thank the central administration, to every department for your hard work, because without you, I would not have 3 successful students that's going to be a success and a great asset to society. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the board this evening?
How's it going, everybody? I am Marcus Reed, the owner of Mission 24. This is a recreational center for teenagers in the area. We have different programs for them, different amenities for them. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we have different programs for them, different amenities for them, from exercise equipment to a movie room. I'm under the mentorship of David Meltzer now. He's a 2-time best-selling author. He's a celebrity entrepreneur, and he's kind of guiding me and letting me know exactly how to go about things. So it's a very good program, and I want to keep it as violent as possible. Right now we're in pre-sale, where they can sign up for a membership. It's just kind of like a gym membership. You swipe in and you come in and you use the facility. And it's open every day till 11 p.m. And I just want to keep it as violent as possible and not have too many outsiders come in. So I want to work directly with you guys to come up with a plan to make sure violent students know that we're there.
I'm sorry.
He should submit something
Mr.
in
Reed,
writing.
thank you for sending the email to, I don't know if you did to all the board members, but I did get it. And I did have the opportunity to go onto your website and your Facebook. And certainly, I I was very impressed by the services that are given to the students or to teenagers. Is it just for teenagers?
Just for teenagers.
Okay. So are you targeting more of the high school students?
Yeah, a lot of them have signed up already, but we're trying to make sure, right now, our goal is to get Vineland High School students kind of like the first dibs on signing up free, getting a customized pay, membership cost, and things like that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Anyone else wishing to address the board this evening?
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Good, how are you?
My name is Pamela Finelli. I am an employee of the district. I'm actually a full-time bus driver, thank you. 54-passenger bus driver, so the full-size bus. I'm here tonight. I'm a parent as well. My son is in Duran. We have a lot of drivers here tonight as well. So what we would like to know is there a plan already set in place or a direction that we're headed as far as 54-passenger buses? Are we definitely eliminating them and going with Shepherd bus service and only leaving our special needs buses that will say City of Vineland Public Schools? Or are we planning on going everyone over to another company? Do we know?
We have to refer you to Mr. Calavini.
Well, he's here.
Yes. We're not permitted to get into question and comment situations. You can also speak to Dr. Gruccio. That's about all we can say at this point.
Okay.
Mr. DeSantis, would you please explain what the procedures are with respect to board members answering direct questions? Can you just...
Over the years, when we developed our bylaws for our meetings, this is public comment. It isn't question answer. Many times, members of the public have questions, and it's incumbent upon the board to direct those to the superintendent or administration, the rest of administration, for a response. It's not a matter of ducking your question. It should be directed to the superintendent. And so after the meeting, make arrangements to have a meeting or a discussion with her, and your questions will be answered.
Right. We were just asking if outsourcing was being discussed as far as the board goes.
Mr. DeSanto, would it be appropriate for Mr. Calavini to share the plan that he's working on with transportation? Like, what okay, all right. Well, okay.
Appropriate thing would be to share whatever information you want to present with them.
Right. I think that's incumbent upon Mr. Calavini to share with his staff. So I'm just asking if you should do that in a meeting that he calls.
If they're not satisfied with that, then they come and see you after the explanation, sure.
Mr. Calavini, would you mind setting up a meeting with your bus drivers and sharing the 3-year plan that you discussed with the board? Thank you.
Thanks, that's what we needed. All right. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board? Seeing none? Board remarks at this time. Start with Mr. Medio. Oh, I'm sorry. Committee reports. Excuse me. Do we have any committee reports?
I'll go.
Mr. Fields?
I'll start off with...
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
I
Finance
can't even hear
Committee. Finance Committee met on September 7th. Present was myself, Mr. Bordley, Mr. Holmes, Dr. Gruccio, John Frangipani, Nathan Fry, Dr. Rossi, Helen Haley, and Scott Musterell. Ms. Haley updated us on the application for additional state aid. That application was submitted on August 30th. Next, we discussed budget planning. At this point, we're exploring all options. Ms. Haley discussed a lot of the meetings she had, potential vendors for possible savings reductions. She met with a company called Expense Reduction Analysis. Due to their potential high fees, Ms. Haley would not recommend going forward with this agreement. We met with BB&T as well, and they proposed using procurement cards to handle accounts payable for the district order and rebates from the issuer. After reviewing local laws, it's noted that Board of Elections are not authorized to utilize P-cards. We discussed proposal to lease Loiter School, advertised for bids twice with no response. Ms. Haley did receive a proposal for lease. However, the price per square foot appears to be lower than we'd like to make it cost effective. Additional talking points, budget projections. Mrs. Haley went over the following. Each year's salary and benefits will increase approximately $5 million. If state aid is not reinstated to the pre-July 2017 amount, there may be additional $2 million shortfall. And as per Mr. Medio's request, Dr. Gruccio, Ms. Haley, Central Administration, as well as the Finance Committee listed potential savings, and I recommend that each board member meet with Ms. Haley directly to go over that.
Thank you, Mr.
I will also email these to all board members.
Thank you, Mr. Fiocchi. Mr. Ulrich?
The Policy and Personnel Committee met tonight at 4:30. Present were Ms. Spinelli, myself, Ms. Acosta, and Dr. Gruccio, Dr. Rossi, and Mr. Frangipani. We discussed a complaint involving Diesel Garage employees. We were explaining the process with results as far as fitness for duty evaluations, what that process was. The staff from 2017-18 Perfect Attendance Award, about 70 employees, are going to be honored at the October 10th board meeting. So that's really a little nice recognition for them. They're awarded by contract a couple of personal days for that. Summary of employees' administrative ethics violation and resolution of that complaint. Information about a media inquiry concerning 2 recent employee settlement. Update on junior ROTC, instructor search, and the introduction of possible shared service agreements with the City of Vineland, which are ongoing, which would involve a variety of different services involving our personnel. And that was it.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Ulrich. Any other committee reports? Seeing none. Move on to board member remarks. Mr. Medio.
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Sobrano. Mr. Sobrano.
Yes. I was pleased that we had a relatively smooth opening to school. And if I seemed focused on money tonight, it's because of the large numbers of some of these items and a feeling that we have to be as fiscally prudent as possible. Also, in regard to what happened at the last meeting where we listened to 2 hours of students talking about it, a program, when I say relatively inexpensive, I mean relative in terms of some of the numbers we throw around up here. And I was pleased that we were able to find the $25,000 in a supply budget at the high school. I just hope that that isn't going to have any direct impact on the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jennings.
I have nothing tonight, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Fiocchi.
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Holmes. Mr. Ulrich.
Just like to also give a thumbs up to the start of a difficult school year. A lot of transitions going on, some wrinkles definitely to be worked out, but all in all, I'd say that we did a fair job considering what we had to go through. I think as far as comments go, and none of our bus driver personnel decided to stay to hear any board member comments and actually interrupted the meeting leaving. So with that being said, they're talking about a 3-year plan. I believe that this was something that was addressed with the prior school board. I am unaware of a 3-year plan to reduce busing services. So there was some type of communication or verbalization going out that somehow the board was currently involved in this and had discussions, and I'm at a loss for words on how that comes up, but it's typical where you know, we're in tight times. Everybody's looking for you know, their jobs, which I have empathy for, and you know, somehow you know, since I mentioned the word that we have to look at everything, that turned out that we were privatizing bus services, and for the record, I never said that, and I don't know that that's such a great option anyway. So I just wanted to put that on the record so people can go back in the minutes and reflect it accurately. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Spinelli?
None at this time.
Ms. Acosta?
I would just like to thank all the principals, vice principals, and all the teachers, aides, everyone that really made the transition by all the schools a success. I'd like to congratulate Mrs. DeMarchi. I had the opportunity to be at Vineland High School yesterday for back to school night, and I have to say that I was extremely impressed. The school looks beautiful, and I was really impressed by the number of parents that showed up. I think that's important for parents to communicate with their teachers, and the teachers, I think, really feel that having parents vested and interested in the success of their children really goes a long way. It has to be a mutual support. So I was so happy to see everyone, and it was truly a success, and I was just happily surprised by the number of students. Also, I'd like to congratulate the AMSA Academy. The transition from the Johnstone Elementary School to a full-blown academy with high school students has been a success. Everyone really did their part, and it was the little things that mattered, and I'm very grateful for that. It's just everyone really putting forth effort, making the classrooms look beautiful and making it into their own. And I just, I thought it was really nice to see. The kids seem very happy, and I'm grateful to all. So thank you for all your hard work, central administration as well, over the summer. I know it was a lot to accomplish, but you did a good job, so thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Acosta. Dr. Gruccio.
Okay, I'd just like to, again, welcome everybody back to a new school year and thank all of our, well, everybody in the district for the fine job they did. I think it was a very smooth opening considering how much we went through this summer. And there are also a few people that I would like to thank. The Foundation Title Company donated several book bags and school supplies for many of our students. So I wanted to acknowledge them and thank them. Gary and Betty Galloway gave 15 $100 certificates for students in need to go shopping for needed school supplies, uniforms, etc. So I want to thank them for their generosity. And Larry Bertocchi donated various equipment and dumbbells and things like that for the staff here to utilize after work if they so choose, since we're focusing on health and wellness. So I want to thank them for their donation as well. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Gruccio. In closing, I would like to just thank Mr. Calavini. During my 3 years here, this is probably the smoothest I've seen it, and that's saying a lot considering the redistricting and everything that you've had to go through. I had the unfortunate pleasure of being downstairs last week, seeing the madhouse it was down there, and from all accounts, I haven't heard any complaints, so that was it seems like you guys worked very diligently to get that job done, so thank you for that. Security, I haven't heard anything negative about any of the schools yet either, so you guys are doing their job too, so thank you to your staff and Mr. Provenzano, you as well. Mrs. DeMarchi, thank you for dealing with the winter track issue and helping get that resolved. It's greatly appreciated, and fantastic job opening the school. Nothing but compliments that I've heard. To the staff at Lincoln, I had the pleasure of being there the first day of school, watching that operation take place. It was a very smooth transition. Kids were walking in the doors, not knowing where to go, and there were staff there to help them. They were not lingering in halls. There was no lines. And all the students, as you would imagine, were very excited to be in their new school. So thank you to Mrs. Monahan and her staff for a great job. And I happened to also be at Menny's, and Menny's, same situation. They were dealt a few wrinkles themselves, and they overcame them very well, and their staff did a great job. Mrs. Arena and Mrs. Speakman were always running around the building as normal, helping the kids get from their buses or from their parents into their classrooms. So thank you to their staff and to all the staffs from all of our schools. I've legitimately heard no complaints. I'm sure there were wrinkles everywhere, but they were either dealt with satisfactorily, if that's the word, or they were just handled and didn't make it to us. So thank you to all of our principals, assistant principals, teachers, and support staff for the excellent job that you guys have done, especially with this redistricting and the uncertainty by many people of where they belong. So thank you to them. I have nothing further for this evening. Thank you all, and motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.